Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Real and the Rare. My name is Scott Morgan-Rothwell with Xavier McKnight. Glad to have you with us here on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. And Xavier, I know we have a lot of good things to talk about, so why don't you lead off?
Yes, we definitely do. Once again, want to welcome everybody to The Real and the Rare, and as I always say, I hope everybody's ready for what we're about to dish out in the kitchen.
So what are we ditching out in the kitchen?
So let me start off simply by saying this. On this past Sunday, we had Instilling Confidence in Youth Day. That was a nationwide day. And that was one of the newer ones that I had not heard of, but it was a thumbnail image that I had to post to my news station's Facebook page. And in the midst of that, it just had me thinking, the importance of building morale and building self-esteem within one another and giving each other confidence as people. Now, as I stated yesterday to close out the sports exchange, kudos and congratulations to all those who say that they don't necessarily need people to do that for them. Congratulations to you. But the vast majority of people in our world, they need someone in their corner who's going to tell them that they can do it and that they're capable of many different things. And Scott, I start this conversation simply by saying we have to start off doing that now with our youth. We as people, we need that in general anyway, no matter the age, no matter the gender, no matter the ethnicity. We need that. We need that confidence. We need that self-esteem boost. We need that morale boost. It's just the things that we have to go through this journey that we call life. And things can easily bring you down. There's a lot of sadness that occurs in our world. There's a lot of anger and hatred and jealousy that occurs in our world. And if somehow we can subside that and bring more happiness and bring more peace and just be better towards each other, that would be a wonderful thing. However, that has to start with our youth first of all, because as a child, I'll simply say this. It was always fulfilling for me to hear my teachers and to hear my parents and to hear older relatives and some people who I didn't even know that would say nice things about me, like, oh, this is a very smart young man. He can be the governor or the president of the country one day. He's going to be able to do anything that he puts his mind to. He's going to high places. He's going to go very far. Those are always excellent things to hear. But I'm starting to notice a trend now of where people aren't necessarily saying those things to our young people anymore. And it has led now more than ever to a decrease in our younger generation making better and more positive decisions. And it starts with their schoolwork, it starts with their grades, and it leads to other things. And where it really kicks in is we need to start doing that more for younger children. I'll say right around the age of 2 years old, if not 1 year old. We need to do that for them as soon as possible. But we need to do that as much as we possibly can, because when you get to the preteen and the teenage years, you start to see where that may have an effect. You start to see where those who receive that, you start to see more than likely more positive effects. You start to see it reflect in classwork. You start to see it reflect in athletics. You start to see it in decisions and anything that they choose to do. For those who don't necessarily receive that morale boost, for those who don't receive that vote of confidence, for those that don't have someone in their corner that is telling them, you can do it, I stand behind you, you can do anything that you put your mind to, and maybe even sometimes getting some tough love along the lines of, you're better than this. I need to see more from you. We're going to do better than this. You're capable of doing more than this. Because that's also a confidence and a morale boost, too, that we need sometimes. When we may be doing certain things in our lives that we may not necessarily be doing, or we may not be giving 110% to. And there's somebody there to give us that kick in the butt that says, hey, no, you're better than this. You can do more and you can do better than this. But let me go back to what I was saying there when I say those who haven't received that necessarily, you start to see that around the ages of 11 and 12 more so than ever. You'll see it in younger children as well anyway, but it's easy for children sometimes to play that off in those early years when they're surrounded by their classmates in the classroom and at recess because, more than likely, more kids are being taught at school anyway to be nice to one another, to treat each other with respect. But when they're not receiving that necessarily at home, when they're not receiving that vote of confidence at home, when they're not receiving that moral boost at home, when they're not receiving those compliments at home, when certain children are going home and they're being called stupid and dumb and lazy and ignorant and all these other things, that can eventually wear in on the psyche right there. And you start to see poor decisions start to be made amongst people who are not receiving that vote of confidence or that morale boost.
Right.
And you never know what those things can lead to. And before I go deeper into that conversation, I'll just ask you for your 2 cents on what we've discussed so far.
Sure. Go ahead. What do you want to ask me?
Well, what are your thoughts on what I just said about us needing to start off with our youth? Because we need to do this as people in general, but for me, this starts off when, as they say, bring up a child, raise a child. That's where this thing starts off.
Right. Well, number one, when you have a child, you got to hope and pray that the parents are fit parents and that can handle the responsibility. And lots of times you don't have that situation, and you don't even get to 2 years old because of all the baloney going out there that you see in social media. Building morale, of course you want to do that early. But, when you're talking to a 1 or 2 year old child, okay, how do you really build it at that age when they really don't even have even a tenth of what the English language is like? Do you know what I mean? The only thing I've ever associated with a 2-year-old is called a terrible two. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think you definitely have to have a loving atmosphere for the child to be in. I'm not only talking about the parents, but what about the grandparents and the novelty of the child? You know what I mean? And so, what lessons you learn early, that's the one thing I really can't stand, Xavier, about social media. Some of the stories I read and hear about, it makes me gag. It really does. It's just, I don't know.
Well, I absolutely agree with you on that. And a lot of it is, it's a 50-50 street for me. It's usually between stories that I'm reading of what has happened to children and stories that I may be reading of what parents are saying that they're going to handle with their children, certain things that they are doing towards their children, and they put it on social media, and people love to add emojis to these things that they'll type up as well, and these will be laughing emojis or comical emojis, and there's nothing comical about the situation at all. So, yes, I definitely agree with you there on the social media topic with that. And let me get further in my topic simply by saying this. And this is going to explain something that we did before the show. So I had an opportunity earlier this afternoon to finally go see the new Joker movie. And let me start off by saying that was a different type of movie for me. That was more of a dark type of humor than I am used to, than I can say that I expected. I'll say that I learned the full context of what the Joker is and was all about this afternoon because I didn't really know. But it was a movie that I really wanted to go see. I've been seeing the commercials since June. I've been saying I'm going to go see the movie. Finally had the opportunity to do that. Now, before I go any further, I want to just simply say this. For our listeners out there, I'm not going to spoil this for you if you have not went and watched the movie yet. I'm not going to spoil any specific details or things that happen in the movie. Just keep listening to what I'm saying here. There were many lessons that were taught throughout this movie and lots of hidden messages. And this is actually a play off of what we discussed last week with mental health and suicide awareness that also leads into this topic of building morale. So, we have our main character here, the Joker, whose real name is Arthur. And he goes through many different things in his life. He has medical challenges. He has to deal with people who bully him, basically, is what these people do. They'll bully him about those medical challenges that are not really under his control. And he takes it for a while. But eventually, as we all do as people, there's only so much that we're going to take from a person or people in general before we finally get fed up about some things. And throughout the movie, when he would have to take these different bullying tactics that people would present unto him, he would start to lash back at them. I'm doing everything I can right now not to give the movie away, so I'm not going to give out any details.
Right.
But he would do everything he could. He did everything he could for the longest to contain himself. But eventually, he lashed back out, as we do as humans. And this is one of the reasons I already have an appreciation for the movie, no matter how dark it is. Now, Scott, I don't know if you've heard about some of the reviews on this movie, if you've read about it on Facebook, Twitter, or any of the social media platforms, but what I will say is this, and I can't confirm this. I started reading a few weeks ago on Twitter that people were indeed going to the movie theater and they were walking out in the middle of the movie because they didn't appreciate some of the points that were being made in the movie.
Right.
I can confirm to you that that is true because I saw this encounter for myself on this afternoon earlier today. There were people in the middle of the movie where it's nowhere even close to finish who were getting up, they were walking out, they were frustrated, they were really ticked off at some of the points that were being made during the movie. And it's one of the first movies that I've been to where I've actually seen people get up and walk out during the movie. But to me, the movie's not bad. It tells a lot of truths. It's a lot of hidden messages, and some people cannot take that. Some people don't necessarily appreciate that. I appreciate what this movie did because the Joker's always been portrayed as this villain who is very similar to these superhero and supervillain characters, if you may. But this had a more human-like element to it. This wasn't like your usual Batman, Superman, Catwoman type of villain, hero type of movie. It wasn't that at all. This had a very human side to it all the way around. And that's the appreciation I can have for it. But what I'll say is this. As I was saying, the Joker would eventually start lashing back out at those who were doing wrong things unto him. And it didn't even stop there. He would lash out at some points in that moment. And later on throughout the film, you would see things that people did to him that were wrong and that were bullying and that were just things that we shouldn't be doing to each other as people because, of course, we wouldn't want people doing those things to us, but also simply because it's just not the right thing to do. You would come back later on in the film and he'd get back at those people as well. He would handle it in a very volatile way. And that's as far as I'm going to go with that. Now, this leads me back into our conversation.
Okay.
Now, how does this play off of the mental health conversation that we had last week? Well, as I just told you, he has these medical conditions that he's battling. He's a very misunderstood character. You know, he battles many different things. He has to take a various amount of medications. He has a condition that can come off as insulting, but it's something that he doesn't really have under his control. He's not very happy with the way that his body is shaped. And these are all forms of mental illness as well. Some of the battles that people have. I was just coming to what I'm saying this evening about building morale. Well, if we were just a little nicer to people, maybe we could prevent certain things from happening. Now, I'm not saying we could prevent everything from happening, but let's just be honest here. Some of the students who have to go to school and experience some form of bullying, and they either react by going home and committing suicide, or they come back to the school and they make threats, or they act on it, and you have a kid who comes in and shoots up an entire school. Well, some of that, not all of it, but some of it is a play off of what is happening with what they are experiencing with other people. People who are not building morale, people who are not building self-esteem,
right,
but people who are acting to do instead, no, we're going to tear you down, we're going to cut you down, we're going to make you feel awful about yourself, we're going to be as negative towards you as we possibly can. And we have to get out of this mentality as people to where we think that that behavior is okay. Because you don't know how that's going to affect somebody. The two worst case scenarios are just listed for you. Somebody ends up